Fellow nerds, welcome back to Nerd In. If you didn't know this about me, I am a big foodie and I went to culinary school. My wife and I have been together for a while, and my wife is a huge fan of Friends, and we wanted to be able to do something together. And for our anniversary, as a gift, as part of a gift, I got her the official Friends cookbook. This has a whole bunch of different recipes of different food items that were used throughout the show, but it is my wife's by far her favorite show. She loves it. So we're gonna do this together. We are gonna start the very first nerd cooking show with myself, my wife Haley, and our videographer Chris. Today we're making food of Joey's. Let's go ahead and dive right in to this episode, first by breaking down the recipe. So this is Joey's Meatball Sub. It's in season 5, episode 20, and my wife's gonna give you a full recap and breakdown of the episode whilst we are making the food. Now, we did make one substitution, and this is just important. I don't eat pork. So instead of using pork, we are using just all ground beef. So we're gonna whip up some sandwiches and we're gonna make it delicious. All the prep has been done in advance, so we're just gonna go ahead and make some meatballs. All right, so a quick thing, I doubled this recipe because I'm feeding a lot of people. So this is 3 pounds of meat. We got our whole onion, all of our herbs, our roasted nuts underneath some uncracked eggs, breadcrumbs, and 2/3 cups of wine. So, all right, while I'm mixing stuff up, my wife, Haley, is going to take over and tell you about the episode. She knows more about Friends than any person should know.
Okay, so kind of to set it up, Phoebe has a boyfriend that is a cop. And him and Joey and Ross and Chandler go on a ride-along, and that's where the sandwich comes in. Joey is obsessed with this sandwich. It is ridiculous how obsessed he is with it. And he ends up throwing himself over Ross in what Ross calls a near-death experience. So it's kind of interesting to see how Joey reacts to being called a hero, but he eventually, tells Chandler that he's not a hero and that he likes food more than he likes his friends. Gary is Phoebe's boyfriend. He is a New York cop, and he's as rugged as they come. And they're on their ride along, and Joey gets a meatball sub right before they start riding around, and he is so excited about it, and Gary tells him he can't eat it in the car, so he gets a little upset about that and puts it aside for later. And they're sitting in the car. Ross is in front and Joey and Chandler are in the back. Ross starts getting cocky about being up front and says he's Gary's partner and blah, blah, blah. And he grabs Gary's cherry light and they're undercover. And he says, Ross, you can't have that out. We're undercover. So he ends up in the back with the rest of them. And they're all sitting there together. As they're driving around in the car, they finally get to the perp's house, and they're sitting there waiting for him to come out of his house, and there's a backfire on a car, but of course, when you're a cop, you think it's a gunshot. Like, that's just how it works. So Joey flings himself over Ross, and everyone in the car, Gary included, thinks that Joey is a hero because of this. And then everyone thinks Joey did it to keep Ross safe, but it turns out he just wanted a sandwich, which we've covered earlier. That's all he ever cares about is sandwiches. Joey feels guilty for keeping his sandwich safe instead of his friend, and Chandler is very upset with the fact that Joey didn't protect him and he chose Ross. So clearly that, in Chandler's mind, that means that Joey likes Ross better because, they're not best friends and boyfriends or anything like that.
Okay, so after you take your meat, you beat your meat with all this other stuff. But now what we're gonna do is we're gonna form about 2 to 3 inch balls out of the meat. And that's it. And then you're gonna bake it at 375 for about 20 minutes. So this is a little larger than I want. I think this is gonna be the perfect size right there. Boom. That's it. Then you throw it on a baking sheet. You wanna make sure it's prepped, and boom. So now Haley's gonna take back over, talk about the episode some more.
Okay, so after the car backfires and they're all sitting there, Ross calls and leaves himself a message telling him to, quote, cherish every moment of his life because it will get taken really fast. And he also says he has a newfound respect for life. So Rachel ends up going over to Ross's to get all the margarita stuff because they have nothing at their apartment. I don't know when they ever go grocery shopping. And while Rachel is there grabbing all of the stuff for it, his ex-wife Emily calls and leaves a voicemail expressing cold feet with her upcoming nuptials. And then Monica races over for them to talk about it and wants to delete the message immediately. Rachel says, no, we should probably tell Ross what's going on. She goes, just listen to this message. She sounds genuinely concerned, and accidentally deletes it. So instead of feeling concerned for her brother and what's going on, Monica just grabs money off the table and leaves. So Rachel decides to stay there and wait till Ross gets home to tell him what's going on with the message and tell him he probably shouldn't get back with her and that he is better without her. If you guys have watched it, you know how horrible Emily is. Like, she is a horrible British woman and I can't stand her. So I'm kind of glad Ross isn't married to her anymore. Ross isn't my favorite character, but no one ever deserves to be told you can't hang out with people because they're your ex. But yeah, that's basically what goes on with the girls. Their plot line's very small in this episode compared to the guys.
Or the sandwich.
Yeah, or the sandwich, which is the star of this production.
Okay, so once you've taken your meat and you formed it into balls, you got to put it on a lubed up sheet and shove it in a hot hole. In this case, it's an oven.
Patrick has no balls!
Hey, they're still there, they just don't work. All right, so you throw it in here. You're gonna put it in here for about 20 minutes. Because I'm using 2 shelves, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set the timer for about 10 minutes, and then rotate them so that way the heat and the browning all works at the same time. That's all you gotta do. So while we're waiting for the meatballs to come out to the oven, what we're gonna do is we're gonna prep our bread. So we're gonna get these nice big 6-inch Italian sub buns. We're gonna cut them back about 3/4 of the way through, because we don't want it to be completely broken. Otherwise, you want enough bread to keep the meat in, right? The meatballs in kind of comfortably. So you want to keep that amount there. And then we're going to take about 2 slices of mozzarella sliced cheese. Whoa. And we're going to break the wrapping. And then all you got to do is I recommend breaking it in half like this. So you can do a full slice on each half of the bread, giving the meatballs something to cling to while they're in their nice new home. And that's it. So you'll do this with with a couple of them. We're going to stick them in the oven. You want to make sure they're flat like this. And boom, there we go. Let's get to work on making some delicious sandwiches. After simmering some meatballs in some marinara sauce, you're gonna take them, you're gonna line them up right here on the bread after toasting it, all that good stuff. Now what we're gonna do is build a sandwich. So it's gonna be about 3 or 4 meatballs. Looks like in this case it's gonna be 3. I'm gonna try to fit a 4th though. We get it on there, then we wanna make sure that we get a little extra sauce on there. We want to make sure it's nice and saucy, right? Because Joey would like a saucy sandwich. And then all you do is you top it off with a little Parmesan cheese. Get a little bit on the plate. And you can top this off with a little bit of parsley, but that's going to do it for the Joey Meatball sub. Now, as I prepare another one, my lovely wife is going to tell you all about the end of the episode.
Okay, so towards the end of the episode, Chandler is super upset that Joey dove on Ross instead of him, which I've mentioned earlier because apparently Joey only loves Ross and not Chandler. Joey tells him that they're too street and that they're too awesome to worry about anything hurting them being Chandler and Joey. So that's why he dives on Ross. And then as soon as Joey tells him that he risked his life for a sandwich, Chandler, in Chandler fashion, says, "You risked your life for a sandwich?" And to keep his secret, Joey lets Chandler have a bite of his sandwich, not the whole sandwich like Chandler assumed. And that's it, guys.
All right, now we're going to get to the fun part, which is them telling me how it tastes.
I could use this one more time.
It's really good, actually. The everything that was added to the meatball actually feels really nice together.
Now let's get critical. Taste number 3. The pine nuts are a little weird. Not bad, just weird. Herbs actually blended really nicely. It's a little under-seasoned, but the recipe doesn't even call for any seasoning, so what are you gonna do? But it's really good. I mean, the only thing I'd do is add salt and pepper. More than I did. That's it. It's good.
We vibing under the city lights. Wherever the wind go take us. If it's good, we make it contagious. And we vibing